Cool Guy here with another reaction video to Extinct Zoo. Now, this video is the closest life has ever come to going extinct. Now, I haven't watched this video before, but are you guys like sure when this time period was? Like just now? Tell me or something? I'm not sure, really. I haven't seen this video before. If I had to take a guess, maybe like 2001 or something. Those people were killing each other and stuff like that, and they had guns. If you gave me a gun and asked me, oh, you could time travel to any time period ever, I would say 2001. I feel like I would become the king. I would dominate everyone, Some say maybe the BCs and stuff like that. If you shoot a bullet at the Neanderthals, remember, they're superheroes, so they'll just kill you, bruh. Or like, superheroes don't kill people. If you do, hopefully you don't run into them. But then there's the dinosaurs. You're gonna shoot a dinosaur? What are you gonna do to it? Nothing. The dinosaur will eat you. You'll be probably just breakfast for him. Dinosaurs are hungry. And then there's the BBWs back in the day, eating all the time, farming, agriculture, and stuff like that. A gun wouldn't do much. They have layers of fat, layers of beauty, and the bullets would probably just not even reach far enough to hit like an artery or something, So 2001 is probably the time I would go back to. I'm not sure though. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Let's start the video.
In the approximately 3.7 billion years that Earth has harbored life, it has experienced its fair share of some pretty messed up stuff.
Like what?
This has included asteroid impacts, solar storms,
Bruh.
volcanic eruptions,
Like the asteroid impact in North America during the pre-pottery Neolithic that got rid of like the Chinese people or something. Bro, that was crazy, bro. Or like, what if like the Atlanteans were there, bro, and then the asteroids just killed them? Who knows?
earthquakes, fires, droughts, and everything in between.
So the Earth was
Most
California?
of the time, such events don't actually have any profound impacts on life, but a few times they do, resulting in an extinction event, which can be simply described as being a widespread and rapid loss in biodiversity. And so far, scientists have identified about 31 extinction events that have taken place in the last few billions of years. Obviously, we are most likely missing.
No. I'm not saying that this is fake or nothing, but like, I feel like maybe I could have slept through one of the extinction events or something. I would not have slept through the other 30, Where was I in all this, Why wasn't I let know that the world was ending or something, Did I sleep through it? When did this happen? Let me know.
A few, but suffice to say, 31 is quite a bit. And of those 31, there are 5 that really stick out in terms of devastation and scale, being referred to as the Big Five. These, according to most, refer to the worst extinction events the world has ever seen, with each one being responsible.
So one is the dinosaurs, one is the BBWs. Okay. My camera is frozen. And then what are the other ones? Like the bears? I know there's like bears that went extinct and stuff like that. Like, I mean, maybe not, because you go on Omegle nowadays and you see them everywhere. Stay safe, really. Go bear hunting.
Responsible for the eradication of at least 50% of all species.
Damn.
Of these 5, the most famous and talked about is by far the KT extinction event, better known as the day the dinosaurs died. This extinction was heralded by a giant asteroid that struck Earth with a force of 10 billion World War II atomic bombs, bringing the reign of the dinosaurs to a close.
They had atomic bombs back then?
Roughly 75% or more of every single species alive at that moment. It's often regarded.
So the dinosaurs like fought each other and like blew each other up with nuclear bombs. Now, I thought Russia and North Korea and maybe the Middle East had nuclear bombs. I didn't know dinosaurs had nuclear bombs. Let me know about that, because I'm not quite sure.
Regarded as being the most sudden mass extinction event to have ever occurred, with most of the deaths happening pretty much on day 1.
What's up, bro? How you doing?
And to many, namely the mainstream public, It's the worst event life has ever endured. But this isn't
Trying
really
to
the
do
case.
the waterfall
Because
quest. I
of the
think I
Big Five extinction
need a rope.
events, the
This quest
KT
makes
extinction
no
was
sense.
not the deadliest. And perhaps surprisingly, it's not even close to being number one, as that title goes to an event that saw so much life die that it took Mother Nature about 5 times
Or
longer
is
to
your
fully
other
recover
fiber?
from it than it did following the asteroid. This was the Permian-Triassic extinction, also known as the Great Dying. To go back and
What?
witness this apocalyptic event, you'd have to travel a mind-numbing amount of time into the past, approximately
Like more than 10 miles?
251.9 million years to be exact, which would have brought you to the final days of the Permian period. Even before the Great Dying had begun, things
251
weren't going
miles?
so well. For starters, the world was still recovering from yet another extinction event that had taken place about 10 million years prior, the Capitanian extinction, which had decreased species richness
They got
and contributed
decapitated?
to a major decline in sea levels. On top of this, the general state of the climate was quite messed up as well, as Earth was significantly hotter than it is today. And near the equator, it's thought that the temperature could sometimes soar to around 74 degrees Celsius or 165 degrees
Damn!
Fahrenheit. Hot enough.
Now, over here on the East Coast, yeah, I thought it gets pretty hot over here. Maybe like, I mean, the summers get super hot. The winter is like freezing now and just like dry all the time. I hate it. It's awful. There's never like just good temperature over here. But I'll be honest, like, okay, the heat is pretty nice. You know, it gets hot. It's like a sign. You're like, oh, you can go outside to work out, or you can like, maybe like go skate outside or something. Bro, it's fun. The heat is fun. Sweat is a natural part of life. You know, I mean, to an extent, sweat is life. You know, that's the natural state of people. You know, the natural state of people is sweaty. Just remember that.
To literally cook a chicken.
Chicken are
And
people.
thanks to the geography of Pangaea, with nearly every landmass being strung together, large swathes of land were simply inhospitable and brutally dry.
They had
And to add
hospitals.
fuel to the fire, there was also a giant mountain range that cut across the supercontinent, which deprived many areas of rain, and thus creating pockets of death and contributing to major droughts.
Now,
Therefore,
I know he's talking about pockets and stuff like that. Have you guys had like a pizza pocket? What are those called? Is that literally what it's called? Now, I remember, in my freshman year, they used to have concession stands, just like 1 year, outside of the gym, and like, it was like student run. They had a bunch of snacks and stuff like that, and they like cook up pizza pockets and stuff like that, and give you a bunch of snacks, whatever, drinks too. They had that Mr. Pibb, which was fire. And, you know, I got a pizza pocket one time. I thought it was fine. I thought it was safe. You know, I was wrong. I put that thing in my mouth, and it, like, my whole mouth was burning. It was, like, scorched, bro. It was so bad. I had blisters, for about 2 weeks after that. It was awful. I don't think my tongue ever recovered. You see that? That's my tongue. Not recovered. It's disgusting.
it's fair to say that simply staying alive was not a walk in the park. So it definitely was not helpful when the Great Dying suddenly sprung up and took out the vast majority of life. For a long time, paleontologists were aware that something unprecedented happened during the end of the Permian, but no one knew exactly what had transpired. And many different ideas were thus put forth, including asteroid impacts, interstellar dust storms, and even that the weather was just that brutal. It wasn't until very recently that paleontologists finally came to the conclusion that the perpetrator all along had been volcanic eruptions. Though these ones were unlike anything ever
It is a rope.
experienced by humanity, and its mark on the Earth can still be clearly seen today.
No. I believe it if you told me that was the mark of the Earth that you were talking about. Because, I'll be honest, that looks like a giant penile device to me. Now, dinosaurs had that? Maybe. I don't know. Go ask them. Of course, you know, I just fell from the waterfall or whatever. Maybe, you know, it was like that video you were watching Adam and Eve. I think Adam was like 90 feet tall, or he was like a giant of some sort. And maybe he slipped and fell. Maybe I slipped and I fell. Yeah, that's me right there. Well, you never know, really. So keep that in mind, truly, for the rest of the time.
In a place not really associated with volcanoes, Russia. It's there that you can find the Siberian Traps, a sprawling region of
that's where they
volcanic
had
rock
nukes.
that covers an area equal to 68% of Europe's total landmass, and is believed to be the byproduct of the very eruptions that created the worst extinction event ever. And the scale of such eruptions would have been hard to comprehend, with estimates suggesting that they were around 4 million times larger than the Mount St. Helens eruption, and that they even outclassed Yellowstone's largest discharge.
You can imagine how much smoke there was, like, from that. Look, do you think dinosaurs were inside the volcanoes, like, boofing it up? That smoke has nothing to do with, like, even the eruption or stuff of that nature. It's all just, like, bruh, the dudes, they were just smoking up, bro, on that Chinese maw. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the Chinese dinosaurs are what caused the extinction, bruh. Because, I mean, I'm pretty sure Genghis Khan, like, got rid of, like, a lot of the population or something. At least more than 1% of the population was gone because of him. Now, who's to say that there wasn't a dinosaur who maybe didn't do it on purpose? You know, let's give the dinosaur the credit of the doubt, benefit of the doubt. But, you know, maybe he was just smoking on that big maw, smoking on a log, you know, and then it exploded. You know, he probably instantly died. R.I.P. him. Maybe he should have used the sploof or something. Maybe that was the sploof, and it just like shot inwards. Too much, you know, stuff on the outside, as we learned on IO. And there's too much pressure on the inside. It'll just like stuff will just shoot up. So you know, you never know. Really open your mind to all the possibilities that exist out there.
Having spewed out 4,000 times
hey, Ghost,
the ejected
for real?
volume. And if the Siberian Traps had been located in the US, the lava flows alone would have covered the entire country in a layer of magma 3 times the height of the Empire State Building. At this point, you may be imagining some sort of eruption scene straight out of the movie 2012. But the eruption of the Siberian Traps wasn't actually all that violent, and would have been instead more gentle but persistent and massive, with consistent giant lava flows that took place over an extended period of time. And when I say time, I'm not talking about a few years or even a few decades,
but
rather hundreds of thousands of years, possibly millions.
Okay, I was close.
With the most recent estimate suggesting a duration of around 200,000 years.
I'm in the waterfall.
During this time, the eruptions slowly turned Earth into a literal hell, putting extreme pressure on all that lived.
What?
Of course, those closest to the eruptions got the shortest end of the stick, and in the worst case, could have been completely encircled by the lava, as there is a chance that Siberia was actually detached from the rest of the world. And thus, given just how much lava was released, animals marooned in Siberia might have found themselves slowly overwhelmed as the sea of lava spread out and engulfed the entire landmass.
Now, you know, is this like, what was that one story of the dinosaur little kids, you know, that like, there was like some huge eruption or like meteors were falling and destroying the earth, and his name was like what, Littlefoot or something? He was like a little dinosaur, the ones with a long neck. And then there's Sarah, who's a triceratops, and they were trying to find their way to the promised lands or something. And you know, maybe that whole story was about them trying to find their way to Agartha. Maybe Yakub existed back in the day. This was just when he was born. I think I'm starting to really understand and put the pieces together here. Now, I know snow bunnies, you know, I love snow bunnies. Who doesn't? I think Yakub here was being born, at least, you know, as an abstract concept. You know, he was too powerful that even like being born conceptually, not even physically, just conceptually, completely destroyed the earth. You know, it was just killing everything. So I don't know, but I do know that Yakub exists. I have a Jewish friend who's black. Don't worry, he's not just Jewish. Um, who told me that black people are the only people who are gonna go to heaven. Now, do I believe him? I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below.
Incinerating everything in its path, with the temperature of the lava flows reaching up to 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit or 1,200 degrees Celsius, hotter than a cremation chamber. Although, with that said, animals in Siberia likely would have died well before the lava ever reached them, as the eruptions led to a drastic increase in forest fires that were so rampant that they have been inferred in the extinctions of specific genera, such as the seed plant Gigantopterus.
No!
And we know because of fossil records that many Gorgonopsids and Therapsids would have been severely affected as well due to their high presence.
Is that real? They had cameras?
In Permian Siberia.
No! Now, damn, bruh. You know, shout out to the cameraman who recorded all this. He lived somehow. But damn, man, that's so sad. And you know, the dinosaurs dying and stuff like that is so sad. I find the fact when plant species go extinct, I find that so much more heartbreaking than like an animal dying or going extinct. Like obviously, like they're both really sad, I guess. But to an extent, a plant's purpose is to just grow, is to just survive and thrive and exist. It's to spread and exist, bro. That's its only purpose. And to see it just disappear, its only purpose being to exist, and seeing it not exist anymore, it says a lot about something.
But the rest of the world was by no means off the hook, because as the eruptions prolonged, their deadly effects became...
Now, this has nothing to do with the video, but I've been thinking, how do people who are like very large do certain things? Like, I mean, like, you know, do they like sit on a toilet normally? And I'm talking about like 600-pound BBWs and stuff like that. You know, are they able to fit on your... What the hell? What the stupid spider? Are they able to, like, you know, sit on toilets correctly, go through doors? They have to go through the wide frame doors, right? And this is specifically the thing that set it off for me was, do they itch their butt? Like their butt crack, like with a hook. I've always thought about that. You know, Roadhog from Overwatch, you know, he has a hook. I always thought that it was kind of nasty because I just assumed that he totally just stuck it in his butt, you know, whenever it was itchy or something, and then he threw it to hook you, you know. And it's like, bruh, did you even disinfect that? Like, that's disgusting, bro. I'm not sure. If you're, you know, 700 pounds, 800 pounds, let me know, somewhere below.
Universal, with no corner of the earth being untouched. And yet, ironically, it wasn't the constant lava flows per se that brought their devastation, but rather, it was the result of what the eruptions released. As throughout this ordeal, volcanoes were letting out untold amounts of carbon dioxide, ash, sulfur, and chlorine, among other materials as well, which together contributed to well over 200,000 gigatons of erupted material. In other words, more than 1,000 times the weight of Mount Everest. And this sheer volume led to not just one, but multiple disastrous effects. And each one likely could have been considered an extinction event within its own right.
What?
So, it really couldn't get much worse than this. Yet, in typical fashion, it did. And it actually got so much worse, as the eruptions happened to take place in the worst location possible, as they were situated right above huge amounts of combustible organic material and vast coal beds. It's not 100% confirmed, but the idea is that the eruptions eventually infiltrated and set alight these coal fields and material, which brought even more carnage upon the world.
Bro,
what's interesting, though, is that
it like set off a chain reaction, right? That's what he's saying. Now, That's crazy because that's kind of like, like setting fire, and then like there just happens to be a bunch of like, gas tanks or propane tanks or whatever makes, stuff explode. Um, that's crazy. Do you think this is like, the dinosaurs version of like a gas station, and like they went in there, asked for like the Powerball tickets and stuff like that. But then they're like, oh, it's 10 p.m. That's when it ends. You can't buy it anymore. Something like that. Do you think dinosaurs were bum? They would walk in the streets asking for money. I mean, do they have money back in the day? Maybe they're like, give me a small animal or something. You know, give me cranium, if you know what I'm talking about. It's all about generosity at the end of the day. They ask, can you bless me money-wise? And, my blessings will never involve money. And that's because I'm broke too. So, I'm able-bodied. Um, you're able-bodied, probably. If you're in a wheelchair, that's fine. Like, no difference to me or anything. Just let me know.
Studies on this disaster indicate that it was not a progressive extinction, in that it slowly got worse and worse, but rather it had its ups and downs, with distinct nightmarish pulses where the majority of the dying occurred. During these quote-unquote pulses, Earth was basically transformed into an unrecognizable wasteland, where animals endured and suffered in many ways. And if you somehow found yourself transported back then, you'd quickly realize that nothing was okay. But what would have probably stuck out the most was the extreme heat. As mentioned, the late Permian was already very hot, and yet the Siberian traps brought these temperatures to a new height, as the gases and abundant wildfires warmed the atmosphere, resulting in a global average surface temperature of above 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And to just put that into perspective, the current global average is just 15 degrees Celsius or 59 degrees Fahrenheit. So far, no conclusive study has suggested just how hot the equatorial regions could have gotten. But considering the equator today is about 100% hotter than the average, it's not a pretty thing to imagine. And imagining what would have happened to humanity if they experienced such temperatures is another very ugly thought, as we have tended to fare quite poorly when dealing with such extremes. For example, in 2010, Russia experienced a heat wave that brought the average temperature for the month of July up to 30 degrees Celsius or 87 degrees Fahrenheit. And while these highs did not last long, the heat still resulted in over 50,000 deaths. Additionally, the hottest place on Earth, a town of Dalal in Ethiopia, doesn't even reach the Permian average, as it stands at around 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And despite many attempts, the town, or rather ghost town, does not have a permanent population, as every attempt to establish a full-time settlement has failed.
I mean, like, water probably is very scarce in that temperature. It's probably just very uncomfortable. Specific type of materials, to not insulate you probably would work well. But it's all relative, I assume. Like, I mean, dinosaurs, stuff was very hot. But I bet they were like, oh, bro, that's just what it is. Like, kind of weird that it just happened like this. But it's just kind of hot. And it's like mildly uncomfortable now. Or like, and the plants too, right? I mean, I guess they were probably more heat resistant back then. But also probably not, I'm not sure. Because, to be fair, like, the ozone layer probably was, like, not completely damaged. So it probably wasn't as hot as I'd be thinking. But I'm not sure, I'm not a dinosaur. One of these days I might ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. Someone who lived through this. There's obviously footage of this. There's a cameraman. There's someone who saw this and survived. So I'm not sure. So let me know if you guys want me to interview someone from this time period, because I'm curious. I genuinely want to know.
Due to sheer heat. Therefore, it's safe to assume that we would not last long, and without any coverage, someone could very likely experience death within less than 24 hours.
Damn.
This heat would have also contributed to forest fires separate from the ones created by the lava flows. In fact, fires started by the heat are actually believed to have been directly responsible for destroying the very last remnants of coal swamps, which had at one time been the dominant ecosystem on Earth.
That looks so cool.
The forest fires and heat also wound up making another existing problem much worse: aridification, as slowly but surely, much of the world turned into a shrubland or desert biome, and there could even be hundreds of miles in any direction without sufficient fresh water, with some studies even proposing that the aridity was the main killer of terrestrial vertebrates during this event. But the world turning into one giant desert still wasn't the full picture, as even if you managed to find shelter, you'd still have to deal with the constant spewing of noxious gases that slowly suffocated the world, with oxygen plummeting at the very end of the Permian to around 15%, which is by many standards low enough to harm humans, as despite the atmosphere currently being at 21%, it only takes a drop to 19.5% to render us oxygen deficient.
But is that why the birds and stuff of that nature were like the ones surviving? Because they could just fly above all the noxious fumes and stuff like that. Maybe back then, the Joker won. Maybe the Joker completely just, left, like he exploded like a bomb of laughing gas over the world that he put in like a volcano or something. This is what I'm saying. Superheroes and villains have been real since the beginning of time. I wonder what the people were doing back then, because the people were like living with the dinosaurs and stuff like that, probably. I mean, they had cameras back then. I assume the cameraman was a Neanderthal or something. They had cave people. I don't know if cave people or people living in caves is the same thing. No, it's all semantics, I think. But I see someone living in a cave. I call them a caveman. I don't think they're, a homeless person or a vagrant or like a bum or something. It's just a dude camping. It's a camping man. A caveman, pretty much, is what I'm saying. Cavemen are real. They haven't stopped existing. You just can't see them.
And things were actually more grim for Permian animals, as many were accustomed to very high oxygen levels, as the Permian had at one point seen an oxygen percentage as high as 30%. It's also very likely that there would have been moments where the oxygen dropped even lower, which highly implies that any animal that did survive must have been located in low altitudes. In one interesting study, actually took estimated oxygen levels from around that time and used them to overlay a map of present-day Earth to see exactly where animals would have had a chance of at least surviving from a breathing standpoint, with the red areas representing land where life was unsuitable, while the green areas represent places where life could maybe be supported. Between burning to a crisp and choking to death during the end days of the Permian, you may not have had the opportunity to acknowledge yet another pleasantry of this extinction event. Radiation. Lots and lots of radiation.
So these are actual nuclear bombs back in the day. That's crazy, bruh.
Because it wasn't only life that was being banged up by the eruptions. Specifically, the massive amounts of halogens being released ended up causing a severe chemical depletion of the stratospheric ozone layer, leading to massive spikes in ultraviolet radiation. The very same radiation
we weren't even
that
the
can
first
give you
people to destroy
sunburns or
that.
Skin cancer today. And you would have needed buckets of suntan lotion to stay safe.
Cancer?
As studies estimate that ultraviolet radiation may have ballooned by 400% at the equators, while the polar regions, they could have seen an obscene increase in radiation of 5,000%, meaning that simply standing outside for a day would kind of be like being trapped inside of a tanning bed for 4 days straight. At this level, the radiation was so potent that it even left direct evidence behind.
Now, I know some people that would not mind living in these times, bro. Some people are obsessed with tanning. Beats me. I have no idea what their obsession is with tanning. But maybe if we create time travel, you could go back to the time of the dinosaurs, or this time that he's talking about, And maybe you can get like an instant tan if you just stand there for like a few, seconds, maybe like an hour or something. No, you might get cancer, but I think for those people, it might be worth it. Or maybe like, put on sunscreen or something. You'll probably be fine. I'm not sure.
As researchers discovered that plant spores from the extinction event were mutated due to the UV radiation.
Damn.
And currently it's thought that the majority of these plants actually died because of these mutations. But it wasn't just forest fires and radiation that flora had to worry about, as the eruptions subsequently led to a rampant dust cloud that highly disrupted photosynthesis, and acid rain that caused soil erosion. So clearly, life on land got it rough. Yet things were not much better in the water. In fact, marine life actually suffered worse, and the waters got so heated during the volcanic activity that the average surface temperature rivaled the temperatures seen in commercial jacuzzis.
Did they get cooked?
And again, you had all the other effects to worry about too, as the oceans dealt with drops in oxygen, high radiation near the surface, and ocean acidification. And this acidity was way worse underwater, as the oceans
all issues that are happening
absorbed
now.
more of the emissions,
Damn, that
leading to
actually
more
is
permanent
very
conditions and a
uncomfortable
greater drop in
to think
pH
about.
levels. With studies in
Like, yeah, well, as a matter of fact, the acidification of the ocean and, rising water temperatures and stuff like that. It's crazy that this all occurred as apocalyptic events back in the day, and now it's just the nature that we live in. That says a lot, I think, but I don't want to think about that.
indicating that in certain areas, the waters were about 32% more acidic than they are today. This increased acidity is thought to have played a huge role in killing vast amounts of marine life worldwide. And its deadliness was not helped at all by the warm water temperatures that made the acidity all that more reactive. You'd think that after naming over 5 different ways that the Permian extinction could kill you, that the list would come to an end.
Yes.
Yet this extinction still had some sinister tricks up its sleeve, so
Like
to
what?
speak. With one of the scariest things having been the hypercanes, also known as super hurricanes.
Hell no.
Now, this is more of a hypothetical event, but the idea is that if sea temperatures reached around 50 degrees Celsius, or 122 degrees Fahrenheit, then an extreme class of cyclone could form, which would have been so violent that it would have brought untold devastation to both terrestrial and aquatic environments. And while the average temperature did not hit this threshold during the Great Dying, fluctuations in hotspots very well could have, leading to the creation of hypercanes that may have grown to be larger than the biggest storms on record, and if over the mainland US, would have covered half of the country. And it wasn't just their potential size that was terrifying, as hypercanes had much stronger winds than normal storms, with a strong one possibly attaining sustained winds of over 800 kilometers or 500 miles per hour, fast enough to completely erase reinforced concrete structures and unroot any kind of tree with ease.
Bruh, so you think this isn't even hypothetical? Like, do you think this just happened? And, like, the dinosaurs had buildings and stuff of that nature, and it just flew away because of this? Bro, that's crazy, bro. Like, they probably had a whole society. You know, they probably doom scrolled. They probably had dinosaur old school RuneScape. Isn't that crazy to think about? Well, I don't know. I'm not a dinosaur or anything. Maybe I should think about becoming one. But, I don't know. Maybe that's in my future.
And these larger hypercanes could likely bring devastation to areas larger than certain continents if on the right path.
Damn.
And even if they did miss you, you were not completely safe, as they were so powerful that their very movements alone were enough to damage the ozone and create dust clouds large enough that they had a noticeable impact on the climate. And on top of all of this, thanks to their central pressure, hypercanes would have had a ridiculous lifespan too, lasting for at least several weeks. And if trapped inside one, it would be like standing at 3,000 meters or 9,800 feet in elevation due to the barometric pressure.
Like each one on here,
so you'd
for
have
the
that problem
pillars.
to worry about too.
Because it said
Though,
there's
to
a
be
rune
honest, I doubt you'd
indentation,
notice,
but I tried.
as the winds would likely kill
the
you
pebble.
before you could even
That didn't work.
register the atmospheric difference. Naturally, with all these problems, the Permian extinction was an absolutely terrifying and catastrophic event. made even more grisly by the notion that this all went on for thousands and thousands of years on end. And when the dust finally did settle, almost nothing remained. And the few who did survive found themselves in an empty and permanently changed world.
Water, earth,
There is
and
no
air.
doubt that all of the big 5 extinction events had been bad, but the Great Dying really took things to the next level, especially when it came to the pure numbers, as some studies suggest that up to
How many species
96% of all species died, making it
Damn.
10% worse than the second deadliest extinction we know of. And while this number is definitely a crazy one, it doesn't do a great job at showcasing just how much worse it was than the other mass extinctions.
What do you mean?
With a better statistic being the amount of biological families that went extinct, as around 57% were fully eradicated. Which may not sound as bad as the 96%, it definitely is once you consider that the second worst extinction, which saw a species loss of 86%, only witnessed the disappearance of 27% of families.
What?
So less than half as bad. And to put this into perspective,
Now, maybe the dinosaurs were really bloodthirsty, bruh. Maybe they just hated each other, you know? They were like, we need a war. Or maybe there was just one villain dinosaur that was just, like, really hateful, you know? He was probably a lame dork, you know? They bullied him in high school. He was a weirdo, you know? He sat probably and read books in class, like, or like during lunchtime or something. He was just a dork, you know, and he probably was like, I gotta get revenge on 57% of the population, specifically, or like the families, and like he just exterminated them all. I think that's horrific, bro. These weirdos have existed since, like, you know, the BCs and stuff like that. So, really think about that before you go outside and, you know, offend someone. Really, what you should do is probably, if you get someone mad, maybe you bully them or something when you were younger, is, I would say, probably apologize to them. You know, if you hurt their feelings, did this or that, or just apologized, no matter how shameful it is. Maybe like how in the right you think you are, you will probably get crossed off a list, and not because you're dead, you know, but because the person doesn't want to, you know, do whatever to you anymore. You know, just tips to stay safe out there.
of the KT extinction, the dinosaurs' extinction was not even close to as bad, as the Earth only lost 17% of biological families. And because the Permian extinction was the deadliest ever, it's no surprise that many well-known and then thriving groups vanished. On land, the Gorgonopsids, Meganisoptera, Vigaltosauridae, and Paraeosauromorpha were among the most iconic groups that died off, while lesser-known victims included many families of temnospondyls and untold amounts of therapsids. In the water, the situation was even grimmer, and notable victims included the blastoids and acanthodians, the latter of which are commonly referred to as the spiny sharks. The world also saw the loss of sea scorpions, who at various times in history had been the primary apex predators in the waters.
Bro, those things are so
And on
cool.
top of that, the well-known trilobites succumbed as well. Quite the historic loss, as these guys were a symbol of success and persistence, and had existed for over 250 million years at the time, surviving 2 other mass extinctions, and were represented by over 22,000 species, making them one of the most diverse, if not the most diverse, now extinct group of animals to have ever lived. And while extinction was the worst fate an animal could have suffered,
I saw one of those
it doesn't necessarily mean that the survivors were much luckier, as virtually every group who survived still took extreme losses, with the majority having experienced an extinction rate of over 95%. And for some, the damage proved too severe, and despite initially surviving, they wound up going extinct not much later. An example of this can be seen in the Chaetognathidae, one of the most successful families to have existed during the late Permian. They, like some others, had originally managed to survive, but were reduced to only a handful of genera, and were far less diverse than they had once been, and the survivors also suffered from stunted growth.
No.
And while they continued to live on for another 3 to 4 million years,
I will be right back. We're back.
Never managed to really fully establish themselves, with many paleontologists believing that if the extinction had never occurred, it would have lasted for much longer. But ironically, despite most getting a bad deal out of this event, there were a tiny handful that actually benefited from it in the long run, namely
Like
the
who,
Lystrosaurus, a rather small, unassuming dicynodon.
I bet the dinosaur that caused all of this, tragedy and pain and stuff like that, probably was the one that, like, the Lystrosaurus, that's why he survived. He's like, I'm not gonna kill my own family. We're gonna kill the rest for no reason other than to just do it because, you think it's funny. LOL. It's like, bruh, are you serious? Like, these dorks, bruh, these goofies, bruh, are doing all this for what? Because you're like a rejected person in society, bro. You're not even a person, you're a dinosaur. And you're not even alive now, so what was it all for? You freaking idiot, bruh. Like, you're so stupid, bruh. Think about it, like, for 1 second. I mean, to be fair, people be doing that now. And chances are, at a certain point, we probably won't be human anymore. I mean, we're gonna evolve so much, probably on other planets once we start doing that. That, people on Earth will probably, like, not be the most numerous type of human that exists. And we're gonna, interbreed and stuff like that. So, human DNA probably will not exist in the future. I don't know about that, but, I'll probably die before then, so I won't be blown up. No damn volcanoes or something, Know your lifespan, bruh. Or you
Like
do anything
most, it came within
evil.
the brink of extinction, but managed to persist thanks to its burrowing talents, and possibly its ability to hibernate, which might have allowed it to survive in greater numbers than its competitors. Therefore, once the worst was over and it found itself in an empty world, it began to rapidly recover and diversify, and within a shockingly short amount of time, the Lystrosaurus became the most dominant animal in the Triassic Pangaea. At its peak, the Lystrosaurus accounted for 95% of all vertebrates on land, a feat that no other animal has ever achieved, technically making it the most successful vertebrate of all time, at least in a certain way. Yet despite this accomplishment, life still wasn't easy for this new king, as the Great Dying had left the world in an abominable state, with extreme heat and aridity still being a massive problem that would continue for millions of years after, with some studies even reporting that subsequent extinction events tied to the Great Dying likely happened well after the Permian had came to a close. Overall, the carnage and chaos that the Great Dying had wrought was no doubt beyond anything ever experienced before or after, and recovery ended up being an extremely slow process, as it took life approximately 50 million years to fully recover, meaning that for the entire duration of the Triassic, nature was still picking up the pieces. And for 5 million of those 50 million years, it's believed that there were virtually no animals at the top of the food chain. A strange idea to think about.
What?
But alas, things did eventually stabilize, and the world once again became a place filled with life, with the early Jurassic being about when you could no longer tell that a great catastrophe had taken place. And hopefully for both Mother Nature and our sake, no such event will ever take place again. Thanks for watching, and until next time on Extinct Zoo.
Now, do you think the damn dinosaurs and stuff like that even knew that there was an extinction beforehand?
FTC.
That was not meant to happen. Anyways, do you think they knew? No, I don't know. Maybe they were just walking the earth, oblivious to the fact that, this Lystrosaurus completely just destroyed the world for no reason other than to just boof the world off the map, because it was a dork. It was jealous of, society and stuff like that. Stuff of that nature, really. And, like, they were just chill with it. Well, I mean, to be fair, they didn't know, right? That's so dumb. Imagine not knowing that the damn... I just accidentally jumped in a barrel. That was so dumb. But, like, the fact that, they just didn't know. They were happy. It's kind of nice, too, Ignorance is bliss at the end of the day. To an extent, I think. And, they probably were just happy the fact that they were, like, existing and not just trying to survive. Life was thriving. But ultimately, what do you guys think was the saddest part about this? I personally think that the extinction and even mutation of some plant species was probably the saddest thing. Um, like I said, whenever plants go extinct in any form, it's just like it's so sad because their main purpose is, I mean, to be fair, animals' main purpose um, is to just breed and exist. But a plant fauna even more so, I think, than that, because what else? They don't really eat. They usually get eaten and stuff like that. Um, I would say that's like heartbreaking, bruh. Seeing those type of things happen. I don't know if it's happening now. I mean, plant species are going extinct now. If so, I don't want to know about it that much. Let me know about it because I'm trying to stay up to date in like all this stuff. You know, but it's like it's so sad, bruh. It breaks my heart, really it does. Let me know in the comments down below if you want me to interview a dinosaur from that period or something. They had camera footage back then. Hopefully the cameraman is still alive. Um, with that, cool guy out. Goodbye, people of the interwebs.